Hi everyone, and welcome back to this little mini video series all about drafting sleeves. This is video 4, so if you haven't watched the first 3, do run back and have a little watch of those. The first one is all about some sleeve theory and how sleeves work. The second one is running through a drafting method taught by Winifred Aldrich, which gives us this sleeve. And then the third video is running through the drafting method that's taught by Dennic Chunman Lo, which is kind of like an industry standard one, which gives us this one. And then this fourth video is about a comparison of the two outcomes because, as you can see, they're really different. So 2 different drafting methods, both drafted for the same armhole, have given us 2 completely different results. So yeah, this video is about comparing them and understanding why they look like this and what we can do to get them to look how we want them to look. So just to recap, my Winifred Aldrich draft looks something like this. And this is the piece that I've traced off, so it's net. Remember, we have no seam allowance on here. Normally I would add seam allowance to this piece that I've traced, but because I want to show you guys really clearly and lay the pieces over each other, that's why there's no seam allowance on it. A couple of things that I've done when I've traced it off is I've added on a grain line, which is squared off of my bicep line or drawn directly down from my shoulder notch. I've added a double notch to my back notch here, so what was point number 9. I've added another notch 1 centimeter down because that's how we kind of show that that is the back of the sleeve rather than the front, because otherwise it can be a bit confusing. And then my other draft from Dennic Chunman Lo's book looks like this. And again, this is my sleeve that I've traced off. You can see it's exactly the same. And again, I've just added on a grain line and I've put a double notch at the back, just like on a Winifred Aldrich's draft. Another thing that we need to do when we trace this off is check the run of our underarm. So when we stitch our sleeve together, we stitch it like this. We stitch our underarm seams together. And then if we put them together with paper, we can see what the run is going to be like here on the underarm, if there's any weird corners or points. So here we can see it's a smooth curve. There's no corners, which is great. And then the same thing here as well. Put our underarm seams together. And then you can see that's a nice smooth line through there. There's no corners or points, so great. That's what we want. The next thing that we want to check is our sleeve head ease. So if I remember correctly, on our Winifred Aldrich draft, we had 1.1 centimeters of ease here, and we had 1.9 centimeters of ease here. And then on Dennic's one, we had 0.5 centimeters at the back and 1.4 centimeters at the front. So we should redistribute this because it's not very evenly spread. Let's start with Winifred's. So if we have 1.1 and 1.9, that gives us a total of 3 centimeters ease. So if we split that equally, then we want 1.5 at the front and 1.5 at the back. So all we need to do is move this notch slightly to allow for that. So we have 1.4 here, 1.1 here and 1.9 here. So if we move this notch 4 millimeters towards the front, if we put it here instead, then that'll give us 1.5 because we've minused 0.4 off there, and then 1.5 because we've plussed 0.4 on there. So if I do that in green, that would be our new shoulder notch. And then the same thing for Dennic's one. We have 1.4 here and 0.5 here, and that gives us 1.9 in total. So we want 0.95 on each side. So again, if we move this forward about 4 millimeters, that should do it for us. So there in green is our new shoulder notch. And these notches stay exactly where they are. The next thing to check is that our underarm section, so the areas that go underneath the arm, match our bodice blocks. So on our front one here, I'm going to put my underarm points together. And then you see this area where the armhole starts to get a bit straighter. This is where we want it to start curving away from our sleeve. So I've got a notch there as a guide because I've already done the sleeve for this block, but that's generally the area that I would try to get it to match to. And then you can see here that there's actually a bit extra on our sleeve. So if I just colour that green, so this little sliver here we could take out and that would help us with our fit there. And we'll do exactly the same thing on the back, roughly to this area where it starts to straighten out. Put my underarm points together and rotate it until my sleeve kind of hits the straighter part there. And then again, you can see there's like a little sliver of too much paper there. So let's have another look here. So we'll do the same thing, we'll put our underarm point together here and then we'll rotate until this straight part touches the sleeve, and you can see it's a really different angle coming in there. And again, we've got a little bit extra. And then here on the front, same thing, just check the run of that sleeve. So again, we could just shave off literally just a few millimeters there. So you can see the difference there. We're just almost scooping out our underarm there to get it to match our block. Now let's look at the fit of the sleeves themselves and see why they look so different and how we think that's going to fit. So first thing that I noticed is that my sleeve, based on the method that Dennic teaches, is much narrower through the bicep. So this area is much smaller, and it's much narrower through here, so almost like the cross body measurement. It's also a little bit higher, my sleeve head height, than the Winifred one, and it has less ease through the sleeve head. So how is that going to look when we fit these sleeves? Because this one has a shorter sleeve head height, it's not going to hang directly down the body. It's going to hang at a very slight angle, and when you put your arm straight down the body, you're going to have some gathering or some drag lines here. This one will hang a little bit straighter because it's a little bit higher. Equally, this one is going to be tighter around the bicep because it's smaller. This one is going to be much looser around the bicep, which does mean that you will actually have a little bit more movement with this one. You'll have more freedom to kind of dance around. This one is as tight as it possibly could be, with still allowing for some movement for your arm. If I'm completely honest, this sleeve looks more how I would expect a t-shirt sleeve to look, and this sleeve looks more how I would expect a fitted woven bodice sleeve to look. So if I was going to twirl up one of these sleeves, if I had to pick one, I would pick this one, not this one, because I think this one needs more work. The reason that it needs more work now at this kind of finished stage is because when we drafted this one, we stopped along the way to assess and analyze our bicep measurement and our sleeve head height. Whereas this one, it was all worked out in our calculations that we were given along the way. So now we almost need to take a step back and do that analysis with this sleeve that we've already done with this sleeve. So what would I do here? I would basically reduce my bicep measurement. So I would make my sleeve smaller. And I would also increase my sleeve head height. So this one does definitely still need a lot more work. For an extra level, let's compare it to my actual sleeve block that I know is tried and tested and fits really beautifully. So this is my actual sleeve block that I use regularly. This is my Winifred Aldrich pattern, and let's put this one over here. So lining up my bicep line, you can see the difference here. So Winifred Aldrich sleeve is much, much wider on the bicep and much wider through my sleeve head or my cross body, but it's also shorter. So if I put this one on top, we can have a little look at that. You can see it's much shorter, about a centimetre shorter. So our assessment there of reducing the bicep and increasing the sleeve head height is actually pretty good. And then we'd still need to also just play about with the shape here of our sleeve head curve, which when you twirl it up, you can have a little look at that. That's the best way, I think, to judge that. And if we compare this sleeve to our Dennic Chunman Lo sleeve, you can see the bicep measurement's quite similar, and the sleeve head height is more similar than it was on this one, but it's still a little bit shorter, so we could increase that a little bit more. And then you can also see that actually on my block sleeve, I've added more width across my cross front or my cross body measurement here. Again, this will have just been something that I noticed when I toiled it, so I amended that. But you can see how this is much closer to our finished sleeve already than our Winifred Aldrich one. So what conclusions can we draw from this? Essentially, if you're looking for a method that's great for a beginner, one that you can follow step by step if you're not so confident on your relationship of how sleeves work and your drafting capabilities, then I'd probably still recommend that you go for Winifred Aldrich's method. The finished product here is slightly further away from our ideal sleeve than Dennic's one, but the steps that you would have to take here to get it back to this point or get it to this point aren't huge. And actually, if you're a beginner, these are good amendments to learn how to do, because it'll help with you understanding that relationship between bicep, sleeve head height, and total sleeve head measurement. However, if you're really confident in your understanding of sleeves and you are keen for drafting, then I would do this method. This is a method that most people that I know in the industry use, or at least a variation of it. Lots of people have different ways that they do it, but this like triangular start and mapping out that way generally is how I see people doing it. But neither method has taken us to our finished point. It's really important to note that both methods actually needed amendments, one more than the other, but they both definitely still do need some tweaking. So I guess the big lesson to learn from this video series is that toiling is the best place that you're going to see problems, and that's where you're going to be able to fix them. So once you've drafted, remember to toile and assess and analyze, and then come back to your pattern and amend it so that you can get the perfect fit that you know you want. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope that you have enjoyed this little mini video series, or not so mini video series. Like I said, if you haven't watched the other 3 videos, go and have a little watch. They are packed with loads of useful information. Let me know what you think. Like, comment, and subscribe, all of that stuff. If you want some more, then you can find me on Instagram at Project Patterns, and I have a website where I sell online courses and stuff like that. www.projectpatterns.co.uk. Thanks for watching. Bye.